I was dead. This was the first realization upon regaining consciousness. The ears were filled with the piercing siren of an ambulance, the eyes saw a twisted and deformed car roof, and there was warm liquid flowing from the forehead, blurring the vision. "Thea Lynn, you really are a persistent ghost," came Bolu's voice from the driver's seat, laced with familiar disdain. "Even going to get a divorce, you have to cause me trouble," wanting to retort but unable to make a sound. The body felt as if weighed down by 1,000 pounds, immobile. The sound of rain, sirens, and the exclamations of passers-by mingled together, gradually fading away. "If it weren't for you meddling and delivering that love letter back then, causing the accident, why would I have been forced to marry a cripple like you? Do you have any idea how much I've been mocked by my friends all these years?" His voice grew distant. "Now it's finally over. You're dead, and I can openly be with Vivi. To be honest, Vivi and I have already registered our marriage abroad." Darkness swallowed her consciousness. She thought this was the end, but when she opened her eyes again, sunlight streamed through the classroom window, casting dappled shadows on the desk. I blink my eyes, focusing my gaze on the math test paper spread out before me, a mock exam for senior high. "Thea, help me out, Tilda." A pink love letter folded into a heart shape is pushed toward me, accompanied by a familiar voice. "You absolutely must deliver this to Vivi Sue for me today." I jerk my head up and see a face I thought I'd never want to see again in this lifetime. 18-year-old Bolu, my childhood friend and the person who ruined my life in my past life. He's looking at me with that pleading smile I could never refuse. Just like every other time he asked for my help over the past decade. The voice choked in the throat, fingers trembling uncontrollably. "What's wrong?" He tilted his head, his face radiant with youth under the sunlight. "It's just delivering a love letter. Not the first time. I'll treat you to a drink tomorrow." Memories flooded in like a tide. It was this love letter. It was this very day. In my past life, I helped him deliver a love letter, but on the way back, I was hit by a car, lost my right leg, missed the college entrance exam, and lost the chance to become a doctor. Out of guilt, the Liu family forced Bolu to marry me, but it ruined both of our lives. "Thea, what are you spacing out for?" Bolu waved his hand in front of my eyes. "School's almost over. You should head over soon." On the podium, the math teacher was explaining the last big problem. The classroom was filled with the stifling heat of early summer and the tension before the college entrance exam. Looking around, every face was familiar yet strange. This was my senior year classroom. I had actually gone back 10 years in time. "No," I heard my own voice, eerily calm. "Deliver it yourself." Bolu froze, clearly not expecting me to refuse. "Stop joking around. Our homeroom teacher is so strict. If I get caught, I'm done for. You have good grades, and all the teachers like you. Even if you get caught, it won't be a big deal." I picked up the love letter and, under his hopeful gaze, tore it in half, then into quarters, before crumpling it into a ball and tossing it into the trash bin at the back of the classroom. "Thea Lynn, are you crazy?" Bolu's face turned pale, his voice drawing the attention of nearby classmates. "I'm perfectly sober." Staring straight into his eyes, the pent-up anger and grievances from my past life surged in my chest. I remembered how he repeatedly mocked me as a cripple in front of his friends, how he abandoned me time and again to go abroad in search of his first love, even getting married overseas, and how he insulted my parents and loved ones over and over. "Bolu, from today onward, we're done. Deal with your own mess." The class bell rang at just the right moment. I quickly packed my bag, ignored his stunned expression, and rushed out of the classroom without looking back. The sunlight felt warm and real on my face. I took a deep breath, savoring the healthy, powerful strides of my legs. This is not a dream. I have truly been reborn, returning to the day that changed my fate. This time, I will not repeat the same mistakes. The moment I pushed open the door to my home, my eyes instantly welled up with tears. "Thea, you're back." Mom peeked out from the kitchen, her face still free of the wrinkles that would later form from worrying about me. "Dinner's almost ready. Go wash your hands first." I stood still, greedily taking in the sight of this familiar yet unfamiliar home. The calendar hanging on the living room wall showed March 12th, 2015. Mom's favorite light blue curtains swayed gently in the breeze, and a plate of fresh fruit sat on the dining table. Every detail felt so vivid in my previous life. After my amputation, My parents nearly went bankrupt trying to pay for my treatment. Mom's hair turned white overnight, and Dad's back became hunched. But now, they stood before me, healthy and whole, as if heaven had given me a second chance. What's wrong? Standing there in a daze, Mom wiped her hands and walked over, reaching out to touch my forehead. Are you feeling unwell? I threw my arms around her, burying my face in her shoulder. Breathing in that familiar mix of faint cooking oil and laundry detergent. It's nothing. I just missed you. This child, you just left this morning and already miss me. Mom patted my back with a smile and said, go wash your hands quickly. I made your favorite sweet and sour pork ribs today. During dinner, I practically devoured every dish Mom made, even surprising Dad with my appetite. After the meal, I took the initiative to clear the table, then announced under my parents' astonished gazes. Starting today, I'm going all out to prepare for the college entrance exams, so I might not have as much time for household chores. Did you have an epiphany? Dad chuckled, adjusting his glasses. All right then, your mom and I will take care of the housework. You just focus on your studies. Back in my room, I locked the door, threw myself onto the bed, and buried my face in the pillow, letting out a few silent screams before calming down. I had truly been reborn. I was back at the most critical month before the college entrance exams. I rolled over and sat up, pulling out all my textbooks and notes from my backpack, spreading them across the entire desk. Since fate had given me a second chance, I was determined to seize this opportunity. Get into the prestigious Capital Medical University I had always dreamed of, and become a doctor. Opening my math notebook, I froze. The formulas and problem-solving methods I once knew by heart now looked strangely unfamiliar. I then flipped through my physics and chemistry textbooks. The situation was even worse. Years of a miserable married life and the self-doubt brought on by my disability had eroded nearly all my high school knowledge over time. No way. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead as my fingers trembled slightly. Rebirth had given me a healthy body and a second chance, but it hadn't returned the knowledge I once possessed. There were less than 3 months left until the college entrance exams. I took a deep breath, pulled out a brand new notebook, and began drafting my study plan. In my previous life, I missed the college entrance exam due to a car accident, and later, I could only attend an ordinary university through self-study exams, majoring in a field I didn't even like. This time, I must get into the best medical school with outstanding grades. At 2 a.m., I finally completed a detailed study schedule, precise down to every hour of each day. My eyelids felt as heavy as lead, but I forced myself to open the math textbook and started reviewing from the most basic trigonometric functions. Thea, why aren't you asleep yet? Mom gently knocked on my door. Going to bed right now, I responded, yet stubbornly finished the problem at hand before turning off the desk lamp. Lying in bed, I recalled what happened at school today. Bolu's shocked expression flashed before my eyes, stirring a faint sense of vengeful satisfaction in my heart. In my past life, I always catered to his every whim, even ruining my own life just to deliver love letters for him. Yet after marriage, he vented all his resentment on me. This time, I won't have anything to do with you anymore, I whispered into the darkness before falling into a deep sleep. The next morning, I arrived at the classroom half an hour earlier than usual. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, spilling over the empty desks as I took out my English vocabulary book and began memorizing words. Classmates trickled in one after another, their faces showing surprise at seeing me there so early. When Bolu walked in, I didn't even look up, keeping my focus on the physics exercises in front of me. Thea, he stood in front of my desk, his voice clearly displeased. Aren't you going to explain what happened yesterday? I kept writing formulas without even glancing at him. There's nothing to explain. What's wrong with you? He pressed down on my notebook. Haven't we always been like this? You deliver things for me, and I treat you to ice cream. I looked up at him. That face, which once made my heart race, now only filled me with disgust. That was before. Now I'm preparing for the college entrance exams and don't have time for these silly games of yours. College entrance exams, he scoffed. With your grades, you could get into a top-tier university without even trying. Why stress about it? I forcefully pulled back my notebook. Mind your own business. Bolu's expression darkened, and just as he was about to say something, homeroom teacher Mr. Lee walked into the classroom. He had no choice but to sulkily return to his seat. During morning classes, I could feel Bolu frequently glancing back at me, but I never met his gaze. Between classes, I seized every moment to review, even holding off on going to the bathroom, afraid to waste a single second. As the school bell rang, I quickly packed my bag and prepared to leave. Bolu rushed over in one swift motion to block me. "Let's go together." "No need, I'm going to the library." I tried to sidestep him. He grabbed my wrist. "What's wrong with you? Why are you suddenly so cold to me? Aren't we best friends?" I shook off his hand, raising my voice slightly. "I told you, I need to study. Please don't disturb me." The students still in the classroom all turned to look, and whispers began to rise. Bolu's face flushed red, a flash of anger in his eyes. "Thea Lynn, have you lost your mind? Think whatever you want." I slung my backpack over my shoulder and strode out of the classroom, my heart pounding in my chest. In my past life, I had always been cautious around him, afraid of upsetting him. But now, I could finally say no with a clear conscience. The library was so quiet you could hear the sound of pages turning. I found a corner seat, spread out my books, and began to study. But before long, a figure sat down across from me. Thinking it was Bolu coming to pester me again, I looked up impatiently. Axel Chen. I looked at the boy in front of me in surprise. He was the academic monitor of our class, a top student whose ranking had never fallen out of the top 3 in the grade. Usually quiet and reserved, he hardly interacted with anyone. He adjusted his black-framed glasses and handed me a notebook expressionlessly. "Teacher Lee asked me to give this to you." Puzzled, I took it and flipped through the pages. Inside were neat and detailed biology notes, covering all the key points for the college entrance exam, even including supplementary knowledge. "This, my notes," Axel Chen said briefly. "Teacher Lee mentioned you want to apply to medical school." I stared at him in shock. How does Teacher Lee know? I had only filled out that career plan form this morning. Axel Chen shrugged and had already lowered his head to work on his own exercises. Clearly not intending to continue the conversation, I carefully flipped through the notes, finding the content more systematic and easier to understand than the textbook, with key points and difficult sections highlighted in different colors. Thank you. And please thank Professor Lee for me too." Axel Chen nodded without saying another word. We continued studying quietly like that until the library's closing bell rang. Over the next few days, Bolu tried every trick to get my attention, placing my favorite milk tea on my desk, though I no longer liked that flavor, deliberately laughing loudly with classmates along my usual path after school, even sending mutual friends to probe the reason for my sudden change of heart. I ignored everything else and devoted myself entirely to studying. During the day, I listened attentively to every class, chased after teachers during breaks to ask questions, and headed straight to the library after school. After returning home in the evening, I would review until midnight, pinching my thigh whenever I felt sleepy. During Friday's biology class, the teacher announced there would be a quiz next week. After class, I saw Axel Chen organizing his notes and mustered the courage to walk over. "Axel Chen, could I borrow your biology notes, just for the quiz next week?" My voice grew quieter as I spoke. In my past life, I never asked others for help with studying, but now the situation is different. He glanced up at me, took a folder from his bag, and handed it to me. "The latest ones are in here." "Thank you, I'll definitely return them by Monday." I accepted them as if they were a priceless treasure. "Don't rush." He paused. "Your study method has issues." I froze. "What issues?" "You're too impatient." Axel Chen's voice was calm. "The college entrance exam isn't something you can conquer overnight. Staying up late like this actually lowers your efficiency." My face suddenly grew hot. How did he know I was staying up late? Were my dark circles that obvious? I just have a lot to catch up on," I murmured under my breath. Axel Chen looked at me for a moment before suddenly saying, "Saturday morning, 8 a.m., 3rd floor of the city library. I have compiled key points for all subjects." I looked up in surprise, hardly believing my ears. Was Axel Chen asking me to study together? "Up to you whether you come or not." He had already turned to leave, leaving me standing there, clutching that biology notebook tightly, my heart inexplicably racing. Heaven must be helping me. After school, as expected, Bolu was waiting for me at the school gate again. This time, I pretended not to see him and walked straight to the bus stop. "Thea Lynn," he caught up and blocked my path. "What's wrong with you? You've been like a completely different person this whole week. I've told you many times. I need to study. I tried to walk around him. Cut the crap. He raised his voice. Did you fall for someone else? It's Axel Chen, isn't it? You've been sticking around him all week. I stopped in my tracks, turned to face him squarely. Bolu, we're not in a relationship, and I have no obligation to explain my actions to you. It's my freedom to choose who I associate with. His expression looked as if he'd been slapped. We grew up together, and this is how you treat me, precisely because I've known you for so long that I understand what kind of person you are. I said calmly, please don't disturb my studies anymore. With that, I turned and boarded the bus that had just arrived, leaving Bolu standing there in stunned silence. Through the bus window, I watched his expression shift from shock to anger, and finally to a kind of bewilderment I had never seen on his face before. In my past life, I would have been unsettled by any fluctuation in his emotions, but now, I only feel a sense of relief. As the bus pulled away from the stop, I took a deep breath, opened Axel Chen's notebook, and soon lost myself in the ocean of knowledge. This time, I won't give up my future for anyone. At 7:40 on Saturday morning, I stood in front of the city library, nervously twisting the straps of my backpack. I was 20 minutes early, but I had barely slept the night before, my mind filled with formulas and theorems. When the clock in front of the library struck 7:50, I saw a familiar figure step off the bus. Axel Chen was dressed simply in a white t-shirt and jeans, his skin looking especially fair under the sunlight. His eyes behind black-framed glasses widened slightly when he saw me. Morning, he greeted briefly as he walked up to me. Gee, good morning, I inexplicably stuttered. I just happened to come a bit early since it was on my way. Axel Chen nodded without exposing my lie. His home and mine weren't even in the same direction. The library's air conditioning was set quite cold. I followed Axel Chen up to the third floor and sat down at a corner table by the window. He pulled out a thick stack of neatly bound papers from his backpack and slid them toward me. This is my compilation of key points and common question types for the college entrance exams in all subjects. His voice was very quiet, as if afraid of disturbing other readers. Look through them first, and ask me if you have any questions. I turned to the first page, which was densely yet neatly filled with concise summaries of all key mathematical concepts. Important formulas were highlighted in red, common pitfalls marked with yellow highlighter, and small handwritten notes in pencil filled the margins. This was far better than any review guide available on the market. This is incredibly thorough. I looked up and said sincerely, how long did it take you to compile this? Axel Chen lowered his head to flip through his own book, the tips of his ears turning slightly red. Not long. For the next 3 hours, we immersed ourselves in our studies. Occasionally, when I encountered something I didn't understand, I would lightly tap my finger on that part of the material. Axel Chen would then pause his writing and explain it to me in detail in a voice only the two of us could hear, until I fully grasped it. By noon, my stomach betrayed me with a growl. Axel Chen glanced up at me, then pulled out 2 rice balls and a bottle of mineral water from his bag. Here, he said, pushing one rice ball toward me, from the cafeteria. Not the best taste, but it'll fill you up. I was stunned. You prepared this in advance. Axel Chen had already unwrapped the packaging and taken a bite. Figured you'd be hungry. Holding the warm rice ball in my hand, a wave of warmth surged through my heart. In my past life, I had almost no impression of Axel Chen, only knowing he was a top-performing loner. Now it seemed that beneath that aloof exterior lay an unexpectedly thoughtful person. Thank you, I said softly, taking a bite of the rice ball. The aroma of seaweed filled my mouth. It's really delicious. The corners of Axel Chen's lips lifted slightly. It might not have qualified as a smile, but it was enough to brighten his entire face. We continued studying in the afternoon, and it wasn't until the library's closing music played that I realized a whole day had passed. My notebook was filled with newly learned problem-solving techniques and knowledge points. My head felt a bit swollen from absorbing too much information, but my heart was incredibly fulfilled. Coming again next Saturday, Axel Chen suddenly asked as we packed our bags. I looked up and met his eyes, clear and calm behind his glasses, with no hint of joking. Come, I answered without hesitation. 8 o'clock, same spot. He slung his backpack over his shoulder. Remember to bring your water bottle. There's hot water in the library. I nodded, watching his retreating figure. a smile unconsciously tugging at the corners of my lips. On the first weekend after my rebirth, I had somehow become study partners with Axel Chen. Back at school on Monday, I listened to the lectures with even more focus than usual, with Axel Chen's notes and explanations. The previously vague knowledge points became clear. During breaks, I no longer chatted with classmates but instead used the time to review the previous lesson or preview the next one. On Wednesday afternoon, during the free activity period of PE class, most students went to play basketball or sat in the shade chatting, while I quietly slipped back to the classroom and took out my physics workbook to start solving problems. "I knew you'd be here," a voice came from the doorway. I looked up and saw class monitor Li Xiaoqing leaning against the doorframe, twirling a set of keys in her hand. "The sports committee sent me to get the spare whistle." She walked in and glanced curiously at my exercise book. "Working so hard, that's not like you." I smiled without answering. In my past life, my relationship with Li Xiaoqing had been average. She was the cheerful, outgoing type with lots of friends. While I had only ever orbited around Bolu, "Bolu has been asking about you these past few days," Li Xiaoqing said casually as she took the whistle from the podium drawer. "He genuinely doesn't seem to understand why you suddenly stopped paying attention to him." I put down my pen and sighed. "I just want to focus on studying, nothing more." "Come on." Li Xiaoqing suddenly leaned in, lowering her voice. "The whole class can tell there's something going on between you and Axel Chen. Last Saturday, someone saw you studying together in the library. That's headline news in our class." My face instantly grew hot. "We were just reviewing together, that's all. Axel Chen never studies with anyone," Li Xiaoqing said meaningfully. "Last year, Liu Ting, who ranked second in our grade, tried to ask him for help, and he just handed her a reference book and brushed her off. I didn't know how to respond, so I just lowered my head and continued with my homework." Li Xiaoqing didn't press further either. She whistled and left the classroom. After school, as soon as I stepped out of the school gate, I heard someone calling my name from behind. Turning around, I saw Bolu running towards me, his basketball jersey mostly soaked with sweat, clearly having just finished playing. "Thea, wait a second," he panted, stopping me. "This Saturday, our class is playing against Class 7 in a basketball match. You'll come to watch, right?" I frowned. "I told you I need to study, just for an hour." Bolu clasped his hands together in a pleading gesture. "You know how important this game is. Those guys from Class 7 have always looked down on us. This time, Bolu," I interrupted him, "I really don't have time." His expression instantly fell. "Ever since Axel Chen showed up, you've become a different person. What's so great about him? He always keeps a straight face and doesn't talk, like some kind of nerd." "Don't you dare talk about him like that." My voice suddenly rose, drawing glances from passing classmates. "Axel Chen is 100 times better than you. At least he knows how to work hard for his future, instead of spending all his time trying to please Vivi Su." Bolu's face turned deathly pale in an instant. How do you know about Vivi Su?" Only then did I realize I had let slip. In my past life, I only knew Vivi Su because I helped deliver his love letter. But in this life, I wasn't supposed to know her at all. Someone mentioned it in class. I hastily covered. "Anyway, I won't be going on Saturday. Find someone else to cheer you on." With that, I turned and walked away, my heart pounding in my chest. Behind me, Bolu called my name a few times, but I didn't look back. On Saturday morning, Axel Chen and I met at the library as planned to study. During the lunch break, I couldn't resist checking my phone and found the class group chat flooded with photos from the basketball game. Bolu looked dashing on the court, and the pictures of Vivi Su and a few other girls cheering on the sidelines were particularly eye-catching. Distracted, Axel Chen suddenly said. I quickly locked my phone screen. "Sorry." He slid over a piece of scratch paper with a complex physics problem written on it. "Try this." I recognized it as the final, most challenging question from last year's college entrance exam. Taking a deep breath, I focused and began solving it. When I finally found the breakthrough, I quietly cheered in excitement, looking up to meet Axel Chen's approving gaze. That sense of accomplishment was more exhilarating than any cheers from a basketball game. Around 4 p.m., my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a text from Li Xiaoqing. "Bolu got injured during the game. He's at the school clinic and keeps asking to see you." I stared at the message for a long time, memories from my past life flooding back like a tide. Every time Bolu got injured or fell sick, I was always the first by his side. I remember in our second year of high school when he had a high fever, I skipped class to take care of him at his place all day, even copying all his homework for him. Yet, after we got married, when I was in unbearable pain from my leg, he hung up on me because he had to accompany Vivi Su shopping. What's wrong? Axel Chen noticed my unusual reaction. I showed him the text message and smiled wryly. The old me would have rushed over immediately. He pondered for a moment, then suddenly asked, "And what about the current you? Do you want to go?" "No," I answered bluntly. "He has so many friends. He doesn't lack me. Besides," I pointed at the thick stack of study materials in front of me, "we have more important things to do." Axel Chen's lips curled slightly as he handed me a biology notebook. "Let's keep going." When I got home in the evening, the class group chat was still discussing the competition from earlier in the day. From the classmates' conversations, I pieced together what had happened. Bolu had sprained his ankle during the competition, and Vivi Su barely managed to help him to the infirmary but quickly made an excuse to leave, leaving him alone. I heard he was in low spirits, constantly asking why no one stayed with him. I closed the group chat without making any comments. In my past life, I would have been heartbroken and immediately called to comfort him. But now, I only feel it's a kind of retribution, letting him taste the bitterness of being uncared for. On Monday at school, Bolu's ankle was still wrapped in bandages. I deliberately avoided his gaze and walked straight to my seat. During breaks, I noticed him trying to talk to me several times, but I pretended not to see and avoided him each time. At noon in the cafeteria, I was engrossed in my meal when suddenly a tray was placed across from me. Looking up, I saw Axel Chen sitting down expressionlessly, and I was so startled I nearly choked. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, even though there were clearly many empty seats around. "No, it's not." I quickly shook my head. We ate our meals in silence, neither of us speaking, but the quiet wasn't awkward. Occasionally, our eyes would meet, and he would give a slight nod before continuing to eat. This simple, natural way of interacting gave me an inexplicable sense of comfort. "Oh, since when did our icy top student start eating with people?" A teasing voice came from behind. I turned around and saw Vivi Su standing there with her two best friends, wearing smiles I couldn't decipher. Vivi Su was indeed beautiful. Big eyes, a delicate face, and smooth black long hair that made her the dream girl of many boys at school. "None of your business," I said coldly, surprising even myself with such a direct retort. In my past life, I had always felt inferior in front of Vivi Su, too timid to even speak. Vivi Su clearly didn't expect me to respond this way either. After a brief pause, she forced a smile and said, "Thea Lin, I heard you've been working very hard lately, trying to surpass our Axel Chen." "You're Axel Chen?" I raised an eyebrow, noticing Axel Chen's frown deepen as well. "Oh, just a casual remark," Vivi Su said, flipping her hair. "By the way, Bolu asked me to tell you he has something to say. He'll be waiting for you behind the gym after school." "Not interested," I flatly refused. Vivi Su pouted. "Suit yourself." "But he's in a pretty bad state now. Injured foot with no one to take care of him. Doesn't even have anyone to help copy his homework. Then you go take care of him." I put down my chopsticks. Vivi Su snorted disdainfully. "I don't have time for him. If it weren't for pity, I wouldn't even bother speaking up for him." With that, she strode off with her girlfriends in tow. I turned to look at Axel Chen and found him staring at me with a complicated expression in his eyes. "What's wrong?" I asked somewhat uncomfortably. "Nothing." He adjusted his glasses. "Just realizing you're quite different from the rumors." "What was I like in the rumors?" I asked curiously. Axel Chen thought for a moment. "Quiet, introverted, always following behind Bolu, like his little shadow." This description stung my heart. In my past life, I was indeed like that, treating Bolu as the center of my world, completely losing myself. "People always change," I said softly. Axel Chen nodded and suddenly took out a piece of paper from his bag, handing it to me. "The scope for next week's mock exam. I've highlighted the key points." I took the paper, feeling a surge of warmth in my heart. After being reborn, I seem to have found people who truly respect me. Not those who treat me like a sticky note, but those willing to walk alongside me. After school, I deliberately took a longer route to avoid the gym, only to be cornered by a limping Bolu right at the school gate. "Why didn't you come?" he demanded, his eyes bloodshot. I waited for you for an hour. I told you I didn't have time, I said, trying to step around him. He grabbed my wrist tightly. Is it because of Axel Chen? You like him, don't you? Let go. I struggled free with force. Who I like is none of your business. How is it none of my business? Bolu's voice trembled in a way I'd never heard before. We grew up together. I always thought what? I sneered. Thought I'd always follow behind you, at your beck and call, do your homework, deliver love letters for you, do anything for you. He froze. His hand unconsciously loosening its grip. I didn't mean it like that. Bolu, I took a deep breath. From now on, please take responsibility for your own life. I won't waste another minute of my time on you. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone at the school gate. The setting sun stretching his shadow long and lonely, but I didn't look back. A week before the mock exams, my nerves were stretched as tight as a fully drawn bowstring. I slept only 4 hours each day, spending all other time, apart from eating and attending school, on studying. During the 10-minute breaks between classes, I could finish half a set of multiple-choice questions. At lunchtime, I hid in a corner of the library memorizing English essay templates, and even while walking, I listened to recordings of key knowledge points I had made. On Wednesday night, as I was wrestling with a difficult physics problem at my desk, the letters and numbers before my eyes suddenly began to twist and blur. I blinked, my vision refocusing, but it blurred again within less than a minute. My temples throbbed with pain, as if someone were drumming inside my head. Thea, have some milk. Mom pushed the door open, placing a cup of warm milk beside me and looking at me with concern. You look terrible. Thanks, Mom, I'm fine. I forced a smile, took the milk, and sipped it. The warm liquid slid down my throat, temporarily easing some of the discomfort. Mom reached out and touched my forehead. You've been studying all day. Take a break. No, I shook my head. The third mock exam is next week. I have to. My words abruptly stopped. The milk cup before me suddenly doubled in my vision. My hand trembled uncontrollably, and the cup slipped from my fingers, shattering on the floor with a crack, spilling milk everywhere. Thea, Mom exclaimed in alarm, quickly crouching down to check if I was hurt. I wanted to say I was fine, but as soon as I opened my mouth, tears unexpectedly welled up. Then came the second drop, the third. Soon, I was wailing like a lost child, all the pressure and fear pouring out like a breached dam. I can't remember, so many formulas, so many key points, I sobbed. My vision blurred by tears. I'm scared of failing the exam, scared of repeating the same mistakes. Mom held me in her arms and gently patted my back. Silly child, it's just one exam, do your best. And don't put too much pressure on yourself. I leaned on Mom's shoulder and cried for a long time until my tears ran dry, leaving only intermittent sobs. Mom cleaned up the spilled milk on the floor and insisted I take a hot bath and go to bed early. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling as my emotions slowly settled. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was a text from Axel Chen. Don't come too early tomorrow, the library doesn't open until 8 a.m. I stared at this seemingly ordinary message for a long time before suddenly realizing, he must have noticed something was off with me and used this method to let me sleep a little longer. I replied with a single okay, then buried my face in the pillow, my lips curling into an involuntary smile. The next day, I slept 2 hours longer than usual and felt noticeably more refreshed. When I arrived at the classroom, Axel Chen was already at his seat reading. I set down my backpack, hesitated for a moment, then walked over to his desk. Thank you, I whispered. He glanced up at me, nodded, then pulled out a folded piece of paper from the drawer and handed it to me. Take a look at this. I unfolded it to find multiple solutions to a math problem, each written in meticulous detail, with notes beside them explaining which method was suitable for which scenario. If you get nervous during the exam, stick to the method you're most familiar with. Don't try new tricks. He said this without looking at me, his voice calm, yet it made my nose sting with emotion. Millimeter. I clutched the paper tightly. I will. On the day of the third mock exam, the weather was unusually hot and stuffy. Sitting in the examination hall, my palms were sweating, and I had to keep wiping them with tissues. The moment the test papers were handed out, I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. The first subject was Chinese, which was my strong suit. The essay topic was choice. I wrote the piece almost as if drawing from memories and insights of a past life, the pen scratching against the paper as emotions poured out. For the subsequent subjects, math, English, and science, I tackled each question one by one. If I got stuck, I skipped it and moved on, returning to think about it again after completing all the ones I knew. Axel Chen's method worked wonders for me. Don't chase perfection, just aim for consistent performance. When the final exam bell rang, I put down my pen and let out a long sigh. Regardless of the outcome, I had given it my all. 3 days later, the results were announced, standing in front of the grade ranking board. I couldn't believe my eyes. Thea Lin, total score 689, third in the grade. My name was right there, just after Axel Chen and Yang Yi. Having jumped over 20 places from the previous exam. Oh my god, Thea Lin, you're amazing. Li Xiaoqing patted me on the shoulder from behind. How did you suddenly do so well? Before I could answer, a group of classmates had already gathered around, all asking how I had studied and if there was any secret. I stood there awkwardly, my gaze unintentionally meeting Axel Chen's, who was standing at the edge of the crowd. He gave me a slight nod, the corners of his lips curling into an almost imperceptible smile. I just did more practice questions, I mumbled in response to the classmates' questions, when suddenly I noticed Bolu standing not far away, his face dark as he glared in our direction. His rank had dropped to beyond 250th in the grade, which in the fiercely competitive college entrance exam meant he might not even make it into a first-tier university. The crowd gradually dispersed, and Bolu blocked my path. Thea. Congratulations, he forced a smile. I always knew you were smart. Thanks, I responded briefly, ready to leave. Wait, he grabbed my wrist. I need to ask you for a favor. I withdrew my hand. What is it? My grades, you've seen them. He lowered his head to look at the ground, his feet shuffling uneasily on the floor. Could you help me with tutoring? Like before, in my past life, I did often tutor him, even sacrificing my own study time to organize notes and explain mistakes for him. And how did he repay me? Every time we argued after marriage, he would mock me. You think you're so great. If it weren't for my parents forcing me, would I have married a bookworm like you? Sorry, I don't have time. I turned to leave. Just 1 week. No, even 3 days would do. He hurried after me anxiously. For the sake of growing up together since childhood. Bolu. I stopped and looked him straight in the eyes. Do you know why I ranked third? Because for this entire month, I studied until dawn every day, gave up all entertainment and socializing. Even talking to you felt like a waste of time. Do you really think I'd ruin all that effort just to help you? His face flushed bright red in an instant. How could you become so selfish? This isn't selfishness, it's self-respect. I said calmly, you're the one who won't study. What right do you have to demand others sacrifice for you? With that, I walked away without looking back. My heart pounding violently in my chest, not from nervousness or fear, but from a sense of liberation. I'd finally said the words I couldn't bring myself to utter in my past life. After school, as I was packing my bag to head to the library, an unexpected figure appeared at the classroom door. Vivi Su, Thea Lin. Can we talk for a moment? She asked, her voice surprisingly friendly, completely different from the last time we met in the cafeteria. I looked at her warily. What is it? She walked in and sat down in the seat in front of me. First of all, I want to apologize for my attitude last time in the cafeteria. I was in a bad mood. I nodded without speaking, waiting for her to continue. Secondly, Vivi Su bit her lower lip. I'd like to ask how you review your studies. My grades have always been average, and seeing your rapid progress, I'm truly impressed. I looked at her in surprise. In my past life, the Vivi Su I remembered was an aloof campus belle who rarely initiated conversations with anyone except Bolu and his group of admirers, let alone sought academic advice. I just practice more problems and review mistakes carefully, I answered cautiously. Could you elaborate? Vivi Su took out a small notebook, looking ready to take serious notes, like your schedule, what reference books you use. Looking into her sincere eyes, I let my guard down and briefly shared some study methods. During our conversation, I noticed that Vivi Su was actually quite smart. She grasped things quickly, it's just that she might not have put her heart into studying before. By the way, Vivi Su suddenly asked as we were wrapping up, are you close with Axel Chen? My heart tightened. We're okay. Just studied together a few times. He's my cousin, Vivi Sue said with a smile. Although we have different last names, his father and my mother are siblings. I widened my eyes. What, he didn't tell you? Vivi Sue also looked surprised. I thought you two were close. We're just study partners, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But my mind was in turmoil. Axel Chen and Vivi Sue are cousins. Did Axel Chen know about Bolu and Vivi Sue in the past life? Did he know what happened to me? Axel Chen is actually a really nice person. He just isn't great at expressing himself. Vivi Sue continued. He mentioned you the other day, said you're special. My heart skipped a beat. What did he say about me? That you study really hard and have a unique way of thinking. Vivi Sue blinked. Getting that kind of praise from him isn't easy. He hardly ever talks about anyone. I didn't know how to respond, so I pretended to organize my backpack to hide the warmth rising to my face. By the way, Vivi Sue stood up, ready to leave. Bolu has been pestering me lately, saying I should take responsibility for him. It's so annoying. Do you know what's going on? My hands paused mid-action. Take responsibility. It's just that last time he hurt his foot, I reluctantly helped him to the infirmary, and now he's latched onto me. Vivi Sue rolled her eyes. He keeps saying that since I took care of him once, I should keep doing it. It's ridiculous. Suddenly, I remembered how Bolu and Vivi Sue had gotten married abroad in their previous lives. I always thought it was mutual affection, but judging by Vivi Sue's tone now, that might not have been the case. You don't like him? I tentatively asked. Bolu, Vivi Sue scoffed. Aside from being decent looking, what else does he have going for him? Average grades, mediocre at sports, yet always acting like he's something special. I plan to study abroad in the future. How could there possibly be anything between us? Her words hit me like a hammer to the heart. If Vivi Sue didn't like Bolu at all, then why did they get married abroad in their past life? Did Bolu force her, or did he deceive her? Thea Lin. Are you okay? Vivi Sue looked at me with concern. I'm fine. I forced a smile. Just a bit tired. Then you should rest early, Vivi Sue said sincerely. Thank you for sharing your study methods. They were really helpful. Watching her walk away, my heart was filled with mixed emotions. In my past life, I had seen Vivi Sue as a love rival and hated her for many years. But now, it seemed she might have been another one of Bolu's victims. This realization dissipated most of my hostility toward Vivi Sue. On the weekend, Axel Chen and I were studying in the library as usual. Several times I wanted to ask him about Vivi Sue, but I didn't know how to bring it up. Finally, during our afternoon break, I couldn't hold back any longer. Axel Chen, Vivi Sue said you two are cousins. His hand paused on the page, and he looked up at me. Yeah, why didn't you tell me? I couldn't find the right moment to bring it up. He adjusted his glasses. Besides, is it really that important? I thought about it and realized it wasn't particularly important, just surprising. But another question lingered in my mind. So, did you know Bolu likes Vivi Sue? Axel Chen's expression turned somewhat odd. I know, many people in the whole school know. Vivi Sue said she doesn't like Bolu. She really doesn't. Axel Chen closed the book. She likes intelligent and ambitious people. And Bolu doesn't meet her standards. Thank you, Axel Chen. I suddenly expressed my gratitude sincerely. What are you thanking me for? Thank you for everything, I said with a smile. The notes, the study methods. Axel Chen's ears turned slightly red as he lowered his head and opened his book. Let's keep studying. There's only 1 month left until the college entrance exam. I nodded and dove back into the sea of practice questions. But my heart was calmer and more determined than ever before. The second week after the release of the third mock exam results, a subtle atmosphere filled the classroom early Monday morning. During the break, I noticed several classmates frequently glancing at me and Axel Chen, then huddling together to whisper. Li Xiaoqing took advantage of Axel Chen's absence to mysteriously approach my desk. Thea, be careful, she whispered, lowering her voice. Bolu went to see Teacher Li after school yesterday, saying you and Axel Chen are in a puppy-love relationship and it's affecting the class atmosphere. The pen in my hand nearly fell to the ground. What? He made it sound so convincing, saying you go to the library together every day and even have weekend dates alone. Li Xiaoqing pouted. Everyone knows he's just jealous that you scored well and are close to Axel Chen. I clenched my fists, my nails digging deep into my palms. This was exactly how Bolu acted in my past life. Whenever he sensed I was slipping from his control, he would resort to any means to sabotage me. I just never expected he'd stoop to such childish tactics. Thanks for the heads up, I forced a smile at Li Xiaoqing. But we really are just studying together. Of course I know, Li Xiaoqing patted my shoulder. But Teacher Li might want to talk to you, so be mentally prepared. The class bell rang. And Teacher Li walked into the classroom carrying a stack of test papers. I stole a glance at Bolu. He sat upright with a smug smile on his lips, occasionally turning to look at me, his eyes filled with provocation. Before handing out the test papers, I have a few things to say. Teacher Li set down the papers and scanned the classroom, his gaze finally settling on Bolu. Recently, some students have reported to me that there are early romantic relationships in this class. The classroom erupted in murmurs. I felt my face grow hot, while Axel Chen remained expressionless, though the pen in his hand paused slightly. I believe, Teacher Li continued, his voice steady and firm, during the final sprint for the college entrance exams. What each student should be most concerned about is their own studies, not meddling in others' normal interactions. Bolu's smile froze on his face. Some students would do better to spend time reviewing their own test papers rather than keeping an eye on others. Teacher Li pulled out a paper from the stack. For example, in this third mock exam, someone dropped from the top 100 in the grade to beyond 200, yet still found time to worry about whether others go to the library or not. The entire class's gaze turned in unison toward Bolu, whose face instantly flushed crimson, the veins on his neck clearly visible. Now distributing the test papers, without further ado, Teacher Li began calling names. Axel Chen, 148 points, first in the grade. As Axel Chen stepped forward to collect his paper, Teacher Li patted him on the shoulder. Keep it up, Thea Lin, 143 points, third in the grade. When I walked up to the podium, Teacher Li gave me a slight smile. Great improvement. I took the test paper, and the weight in my heart finally lifted. As I walked back to my seat, I accidentally locked eyes with Bolu. His gaze burning with anger and resentment, but I calmly averted my eyes. When the class bell rang, students left the classroom in small groups to eat. I deliberately took my time packing up, waiting until everyone had left before getting up. Unexpectedly, Bolu suddenly stopped me at the corner of the hallway. Happy now, he said through gritted teeth. Now the whole class is laughing at me. You brought this on yourself, I said coldly. Axel Chen and I are just study partners. What right do you have to slander us, study partner? Bolu sneered. The whole class can see he likes you. So what? I met his gaze directly. Who I date is my freedom. It's not your place to interfere. He suddenly grabbed my wrist. Thea Lin, you've changed. You would never have treated me like this before. Let go. I struggled free forcefully. Bolu, wake up. I'm not that foolish girl who revolved around you anymore. I have my own life, my own goals, and you. I deliberately looked him up and down. Even your third mock exam was a complete mess, and you still have the leisure to meddle in others' affairs. His face instantly turned deathly pale, as if he had been stabbed in the chest. I turned and walked away, my heart pounding wildly in my chest, but my steps were unusually firm. Turning the corner of the hallway, I nearly bumped into someone. Axel Chen. He was leaning against the wall, holding 2 exercise books in his hands. Clearly having overheard the entire conversation. Sorry, I lowered my head awkwardly. No need to apologize. He handed me a workbook. Still going to the library this weekend. I looked up at him. Sunlight streamed through the corridor windows, casting a bright outline around his figure. His expression remained calm, but his eyes held a warm glow I'd never seen before. Yes, I took the workbook, my lips curling into an unconscious smile. Of course I am. We walked back to the classroom side by side for evening self-study, neither of us mentioning what had just happened. Under the astonished gazes of our classmates, we confidently returned to our seats. Now, no one can stand in the way of my goal. 2 weeks before the college entrance exams, the air was thick with tension and anticipation. The classroom was no longer filled with idle chatter or playful banter, even during breaks. The only sounds were the flipping of pages and the scratching of pens on paper. I buried myself in a sea of practice tests, solving 3 sets of past exam papers every day, compiling an error notebook, and memorizing key knowledge points. The notes Axel Chen gave me had become frayed from constant use. densely covered with my annotations. Thea Lin, the homeroom teacher wants to see you in the office. Class monitor Li Xiaoqing called from the doorway. I put down my pen, rubbed my sore wrist, and headed to the teacher's office, passing by the infirmary on the way. I caught a glimpse of Bolu sitting inside through the half-open door, with the school nurse taking his blood pressure. His face was pale, with heavy dark circles under his eyes, looking utterly exhausted. Since the results of the third mock exam came out, Bolu's condition had been deteriorating. Rumor had it that his parents were extremely dissatisfied with his grades and had hired 3 tutors to coach him in rotation, but with little effect. Several times when I stayed late at the library, I saw him running alone on the sports field, venting his emotions frantically. Report. I gently knocked on the office door. Come in. Class teacher MS. Lee looked up and smiled when she saw me. Thea Lin, have a seat. I sat in the chair opposite her. Noticing my college preference form spread out on the desk, the first choice clearly stated clinical medicine at Capital Medical University. I've reviewed your application. Very ambitious, MS. Lee adjusted her glasses. With your current grades, as long as you perform normally, getting into Capital Medical University shouldn't be a problem. I nodded, my heart racing. The dream from my past life finally had a chance to come true in this one. But, Teacher Lee changed the subject. I heard you've been studying very intensely lately. Some classmates mentioned you often stay in the library until closing time and are the first to arrive in the classroom in the morning. I pursed my lips. The college entrance exam is approaching, and I want to push myself a little harder. Hard work is good, but it should be moderate. Teacher Lee's voice softened. Health is the foundation of everything, especially since you want to study medicine. You should understand this principle better than anyone. I looked down at my hands, my knuckles slightly red from prolonged writing, my nails trimmed extremely short. I understand, teacher. I'll make sure to rest, by the way. Teacher Lee suddenly seemed to remember something. Bolu's parents came to see me yesterday. They wanted to ask for your help in tutoring Bolu. I know you two grew up together. I abruptly raised my head. Teacher, I refuse. Teacher Lee seemed surprised by my directness. His situation is indeed quite difficult. His grades have been declining. Teacher, I took a deep breath. I'm not unwilling to help classmates, but this is the final sprint phase. Every minute is precious. Bolu has tutors and parental support, while I can only rely on myself. Teacher Lee looked at me for a long time before finally nodding. You're right, I didn't consider this carefully enough. Focus on preparing for the college entrance exam. I believe you can achieve excellent results. Leaving the office, I let out a long sigh of relief. In my past life, I would have agreed to such requests without hesitation, even feeling it was my duty. But now, I've finally learned to prioritize my own needs. On my way home from school, I was stopped by Bolu's parents at the school gate. Thea, please, I'm begging you. Bolu's mother grabbed my hand, her eyes red. Bo's grades are so bad now that even getting into a second-tier university is at risk. Please help him. For the sake of growing up together, I gently withdrew my hand. Auntie, I'm sorry, but I really don't have the time. We can pay, Bolu's father hurriedly said. 200 an hour, no, 300. I shook my head. It's not about the money. The college entrance exams are approaching, and I need to focus all my efforts on preparing for them. How can you be so selfish? Mother Lou's voice suddenly turned sharp. Bo has been so good to you, protecting you since childhood. Is this how you repay him now? I looked at her quietly, suddenly recalling what she said to me in my previous life after my amputation when she visited me in the hospital. Thea, don't worry, our Lou family will take responsibility. Bo will take care of you for the rest of your life. At the time, I thought it was concern, but later I realized it was just guilt and charity. After marriage, they allowed Bolu to subject me to emotional abuse and even repeatedly urged me to become a surrogate mother. Ha, how laughable, Auntie, I said calmly. Bolu has professional tutors, and I'm just a student. You should trust the professionals rather than pin your hopes on me. With that, I gave a slight bow and turned to leave, ignoring their shouts behind me. Only after turning the corner did I realize my hands were trembling, forcing me to stop and take several deep breaths to calm down. When I got home, Mom was in the kitchen preparing dinner. I put down my backpack and hesitated for a moment before telling her about my encounter with Bolu's parents. Mom set down the kitchen knife and wiped her hands. They called me this afternoon too. What? I widened my eyes. Mom sighed. I turned them down directly. Your priority now is to focus on your exam preparation. How could you possibly have time to tutor others? I walked over and hugged her. Thanks, Mom. Silly child. Mom patted my back. I was wrong before, always asking you to take care of Bo. Thinking girls should be understanding and considerate. Now I understand. You must first take responsibility for your own life. My nose tingled with sourness as I buried my face in my mother's shoulder. In my past life, my mother had also held me like this, crying and saying I'm sorry after my amputation. But by then, it was already too late. After dinner, I received a call from Axel Chen, asking me to meet him on the school rooftop. It was the first time we weren't meeting at the library to study. And though puzzled, I arrived on time. On that early summer night, a gentle breeze swept across the rooftop, and the distant city lights twinkled like stars. Axel Chen leaned against the railing, gazing up at the night sky. You're here, he said, turning to look at me as he heard my footsteps. Is something wrong? I walked over to him and asked curiously. He handed me a bottle of warm milk. Relax a bit. You've been too tense lately. I took the milk and sipped it slowly. The warm liquid slid down my throat, easing the fatigue of the day. Thanks, I smiled at him. I am a bit tired, actually. Look, Axel Chen suddenly pointed to the sky, the Big Dipper. I followed his finger and saw 7 bright stars forming the shape of a ladle in the night sky. Over there is Aquila. Axel Chen's voice was unusually gentle in the night. The brightest one in the middle is Altair. I looked at him in surprise. You study astronomy too? Occasionally. He adjusted his glasses. When I was a kid, my dad often took me stargazing. He said the universe is vast, and human worries are small. I looked up at the vast starry sky and suddenly felt my anxiety and stress were truly insignificant. No matter what the college entrance exam results might be, this wouldn't be the end of my life. Axel Chen, I asked softly, why do you want to study medicine? He was silent for a moment. My mom had congenital heart disease. She passed away last year. That's when I decided to become a cardiac surgeon. My heart tightened suddenly. I'm sorry, I didn't know. It's okay. He shook his head. What about you? Why surgery? I gazed at the distant lights, memories from my past life flooding in like a tide. I once dreamed of losing both legs. I know that kind of despair and helplessness. If I could become a surgeon, perhaps I could help more people like me. This was the first time since my rebirth that I had mentioned my past life to someone. Though disguised as a dream, the night concealed my slightly trembling hands. Axel Chen didn't press further, just softly murmured millimeter. We stood side by side like that, gazing at the starry sky, each lost in our own thoughts. A peculiar tranquility and unspoken understanding flowed between us. Good luck with the Gaokao, Axel Chen suddenly said as we parted. I nodded. You too. The days that followed felt like they were on fast forward. Every day was a cycle of solving problems, correcting mistakes, and reviewing. My notebook of errors grew thinner, while my confidence grew stronger. 3 days before the college entrance exam, the school gave us a break for self-study. As I was organizing the final key points at home, I suddenly received a call from Vivi Su, Thea Lin. Her voice sounded urgent. Bolu just asked me if we could meet after school. Saying he had something important to give me, I refused, but he seems determined to wait for me near my place. My heart sank. On this very day in my past life, it was when I was delivering Bolu's love letter to Vivi Su that I got into the car accident. He might want to personally deliver a love letter to you. I tried to keep my voice steady. So annoying, Vivi Su complained. I've clearly rejected him several times already. By the way, my cousin said if you're free, do you want to go to the library together tomorrow for a final study push? Okay, I agreed, but after hanging up, I fell into deep thought. Bolu is going to personally deliver a love letter. History seems to be repeating itself, only with the roles reversed. If he goes to deliver the love letter, will he get into a car accident like I did in my past life? Should I warn him? My finger hovers over Bolu's name in the phone contacts, but I hesitate to tap it. The cruel words he said to me in my past life echo in my ears. You're just a cripple. How could you ever compare to Vivi? If you hadn't meddled and gotten into that accident while delivering the love letter, why would I have been forced to marry you? I lock my phone screen and pick up my pen to continue studying. Everyone has the right to choose their own path and must take responsibility for their choices. This time, I choose to focus on my own future. The college entrance examination arrived as scheduled. Sitting in the examination hall, I felt surprisingly calm. Once the test papers were handed out, I focused entirely on answering the questions, losing track of time, forgetting everything around me, and even forgetting that I was a reincarnated individual. At this moment, I was just an ordinary examinee, striving with all my might for my dreams, when the bell rang to signal the end of the final subject. I put down my pen and let out a long sigh of relief. It was over. No matter the outcome, I had given it my all. Stepping out of the exam hall, the sunlight was dazzlingly bright. Mom was waiting for me at the school gate, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "Congratulations to my daughter for finishing the college entrance exams," she hugged me, the floral scent lingering at the tip of my nose. "Mom, did Bolu take the college entrance exam?" I hesitated for a moment before asking. Mom's expression turned complicated. "He had an accident. He was hit by a car the night before last, severely injured his right leg, and the surgery lasted several hours." Although I had a premonition, hearing the news firsthand still sent a shock through my heart. The gears of fate meshed together so precisely. Only this time the wheel rolled over Bolu instead of me. "Is it serious?" I asked softly. "They say he might need an amputation." Mom sighed. "His parents are on the verge of collapse. He's their only son." I didn't say anything, just held Mom tightly. If I hadn't been reborn, it would have been my parents who were collapsing now. After returning home, I locked myself in my room, lying on the bed and staring at the ceiling. Logically, I should have felt the thrill of revenge, but strangely, I only felt a deep exhaustion and relief. Bolu had already paid the price for his choices, and I could finally truly move forward. 3 days after the college entrance exams ended, my mother finally told me the details of Bolu's post-surgery condition. "They amputated his right lower leg," she said while cutting fruit. "I heard the recovery isn't going well. There might be an infection." I put down the book in my hand. "Should we go see him?" Mom looked at me in surprise. "You want to go? After all, we're neighbors and grew up together," I said calmly. Basic courtesy is still necessary. That afternoon, my parents and I went to the hospital together. Bolu's room was filled with flowers and fruit baskets, but his parents looked like they had aged 10 years. Bolu lay on the hospital bed, his right leg covered by a white blanket, noticeably shorter than the other. "Thea," his eyes lit up when he saw me, then dimmed again. "How did your exams go?" "Not bad," I replied briefly, placing the fruit I'd brought on the bedside table. How are you feeling?" He let out a bitter laugh. "What else can I be? Just a useless cripple now." "Don't say that," Mother Lou interjected with red-rimmed eyes. "The doctor said you'll still be able to walk with a prosthetic limb." Bolu didn't respond, just looked at me. "You must have done really well, right? After all, you studied so hard." I didn't deny it. "We'll know when the results come out." I didn't even take the college entrance exam. His voice choked up. "My life is over." The atmosphere in the hospital room was so heavy it felt suffocating. My parents and Bolu's parents exchanged pleasantries, while I stood to the side, watching the once high-spirited young man now lying on the hospital bed, wallowing in self-pity. In my past life, I had also experienced this kind of despair, but at least now I had a chance to start over. "Why didn't you come to see me before?" Taking advantage of the adults talking, Bolu suddenly asked me in a low voice. "On the day of my accident, I kept calling your name." I looked straight into his eyes. "Bolu, we're not friends anymore, remember?" His face instantly turned pale. "Just because I didn't want you to hang out with Axel Chen. Are you really that heartless?" "No, because you looked down on me, used me, but never truly respected me," I said calmly. "Take good care of your injuries. I wish you a speedy recovery." As we left the hospital, Mom looked at me with concern. "Thea, between you and Mom," I interrupted, "we stopped being on the same path long ago." Mom seemed to want to say more but ultimately just sighed and didn't speak further. On the day the college entrance exam results were released, I sat in front of the computer early, my finger hovering over the query button. Mom stood nervously behind me, while Dad pretended to read the newspaper calmly, but glanced at the computer screen every 3 seconds. "Check it." Dad finally couldn't hold back and said. I took a deep breath and clicked the query button. The moment the page refreshed, my eyes immediately scanned to the total score, 708, ranked 66th in the province. Ah, Mom screamed and hugged me. My daughter is amazing. Dad threw down the newspaper and hugged us both tightly. Well done. Capital Medical University is in the bag. I sat there, tears streaming uncontrollably down my face. 708 points. A score I wouldn't have dared to dream of in my past life. All the hard work and perseverance since my rebirth had finally paid off at this moment. The days that followed were filled with joy and busyness, filling out college applications, preparing enrollment materials, receiving congratulations from family and friends. My phone was flooded with celebratory messages, and even distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years called to offer their good wishes. Thea, we're planning to host an admission celebration banquet, Mom suggested during dinner one evening. We'll invite all our relatives and friends to celebrate. What do you think? All right, I agreed with a smile. But don't go overboard. How can we not make it grand? Mom's eyes sparkled. You're the only one in our neighborhood who got into Capital Medical University in years, and you're in the top 100 of the entire province. The celebration banquet was scheduled for the weekend at a hotel banquet hall. That day, I wore a simple white dress with my hair tied up in a high ponytail, looking neat and tidy. The banquet hall was packed with relatives, neighbors, teachers, classmates. Thea, congratulations. Li Xiaoqing walked in holding a bouquet of flowers. You and Axel Chen scored the highest in our class. You've really made us proud. I took the flowers and looked around. Is Axel Chen here? I just saw him outside. Li Xiaoqing said with a wink. Seems like he has something to say to you alone. My heart suddenly raced. I excused myself to the restroom and stepped out of the banquet hall. Sure enough, Axel Chen was standing by the window in the hallway, sunlight streaming through the glass and casting a bright outline around him. Congratulations, he smiled slightly when he saw me. You're definitely getting into Capital Medical University. Yeah, I walked over to him. What about you? Have you decided on Capital University? He nodded. Impressive, I said sincerely. We fell silent for a moment, then he suddenly turned to face me. Thea Lin, I have something to tell you. What? I looked up at him and noticed the tips of his ears were slightly red. He took a deep breath. I like you. Not as a study partner. But, Axel Chen, I gently interrupted him. We're still too young right now. With too little experience, it's easy to mistake friendship for love. His expression froze. Am I being rejected? It's not rejection. I carefully chose my words. I just think we should focus on our studies first. The academic pressure at medical school is intense, and long-distance relationships are even harder. If our feelings haven't changed in a few years, can we talk about this then? Truth be told, I wasn't without feelings for Axel Chen, but the emotional scars from my past life made me hesitant to start a new relationship. I needed time, space, and to become a better version of myself first. Axel Chen looked at me for a long time before finally nodding. I understand, but I'll wait. As he turned to leave, my heart ached, but I knew it was the right decision. Returning to the banquet hall, the joyful atmosphere immediately enveloped me. Classmates gathered around, asking all sorts of questions, while teachers took turns coming over to congratulate me. Amidst the laughter and chatter, I noticed a solitary figure in the corner, Bo Lu. He sat in a wheelchair, the empty pant leg of his right leg hanging limply. No one spoke to him. Not even a glance was cast his way. In my past life, I would always rush to his side at such moments, afraid he might feel lonely. But now, I choose to remain among the crowd, accepting the blessings and glory that belong to me. As the banquet neared its end, Bo Lu blocked my path in his wheelchair. Satisfied, he asked hoarsely, "Are you happy to see me like this?" I looked at him calmly. "I don't understand what you mean. You could have stopped me." His eyes were bloodshot. "If you had agreed to deliver that love letter for me, none of this would have happened." My heart skipped a beat. Bo Lu, you're still as selfish as ever." I smirked disdainfully and turned to walk toward my waiting parents. Behind me, Bo Lu's hysterical shouts were quickly drowned out by the music and laughter from the banquet hall. "Are you okay?" Mom asked worriedly. "What did he say?" "Nothing," I said, linking my arm with my mother's. "Let's go home." Stepping out of the hotel, the summer night sky was exceptionally bright. I looked up, searching for the Big Dipper, and remembered my conversation with Axel Chen on the rooftop. No matter what lies ahead, at least for now, my life is moving in the right direction. The admission letter from Capital Medical University arrived a week later. Holding the weighty envelope, I gently traced the gilded school name with my fingers. Tears blurring my vision, the once unreachable dream of my past life has finally come true in this lifetime. At Capital Medical University, the ginkgo leaves have turned from green to gold and back again, as 10 fleeting years have passed in the blink of an eye. Standing before the surgical residency bulletin board at the teaching hospital, my fingers gently traced over the notice bearing my name and photo, Thea Lin, orthopedic resident. Sunlight streamed through the corridor windows onto the paper, its radiance seeming to shine directly into my heart. Dr. Lin, congratulations. Head nurse Wang walked over with a smile. I heard you turned down the offer from Johns Hopkins. That's an opportunity many dream of. I tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear with a smile. China needs good orthopedic surgeons more. Over the past decade, Axel Chen and I have maintained an on-and-off connection. He completed dual degrees in medicine and biology at Capital University and is now pursuing an MD PhD at Harvard. We occasionally exchange academic discussions on WeChat or recommend the latest medical papers to each other. Every time he returns to China, we meet at a cafe near our alma mater and chat for hours. Dr. Lin, operating room 3 is ready. In turn Dr. Zhong poked his head in to inform me. I nodded and walked briskly toward the operating room. Today's procedure was a complex knee replacement surgery for a 70-year-old retired teacher, hand-washing, sterilization, gowning up. These routines had become as natural to me as breathing, under the shadowless lamp. As the scalpel made the first incision, I still felt a sacred sense of mission. Every time I hold the scalpel, it feels like redemption for my past self who once lost both legs. The surgery lasted 3 hours and was completed successfully. Stepping out of the operating room, I took off my mask and let out a long sigh of relief. A nurse handed me my phone, which showed 3 missed calls, all from Axel Chen. I called back, and the phone was answered almost immediately. Thea. Axel Chen's voice came through the line. I'm back in the country. Great. I'll treat you to a meal. I walked toward the doctor's lounge and poured myself a glass of water. Do you know about Vivi Su and Bo Lu? He paused. They got married. My hand trembled, almost dropping the water glass. What? It happened last year. Vivi Su was forced. The Lu family threatened to sue her for causing Bo Lu's car accident if she didn't marry him. Axel Chen's voice was laced with suppressed anger. That whole family is shameless, relentless. Vivi Su's parents were afraid of trouble and pressured her into agreeing. I leaned against the wall. Vivi Su's once vibrant face flashing before my eyes. The scenes from the past overlapped with the present, only the roles were completely reversed. How is she now? I asked softly. Not well at all, Axel Chen sighed. Bo Lu's leg injury never fully healed, and he frequently needs surgery. He's become very irritable, and he's not very kind to Vivi Su. I only found out recently. My nails dug into my palms without me realizing it. After hanging up, I stood by the window, gazing at the distant city skyline. 10 years had passed, and I thought I had completely let go of the past. But hearing this news still sent a dull ache spreading through my chest, not for Bo Lu, but for Vivi Su, the girl I once considered a love rival in my past life. Only to realize in this life that she was also a victim. After work, instead of heading straight home, I drove to my alma mater high school. The campus was bustling with students in uniforms laughing and pouring out of the teaching buildings as classes ended, their youthful faces brimming with anticipation for the future. Standing by the playground, I caught a glimpse of my younger self. That foolish girl who used to run around for Bo Lu. Thea, is that really you? A familiar voice called out from behind. I turned around and saw our homeroom teacher, Ms. Lee. The wrinkles at the corners of her eyes had deepened, but her smile remained as warm as ever. Ms. Lee, I greeted her with pleasant surprise. I heard you've become an orthopedic surgeon. I'm so proud of you. She held my hands and looked me up and down. The little girl who suddenly had an epiphany in class back then has truly realized her dream. My nose tingled with emotion. It's all thanks to your encouragement. Come, let's sit in my office for a while. Teacher Lee warmly invited. By the way, the school is planning to invite a few outstanding alumni to give lectures next month. Would you be interested? Following Teacher Lee through the familiar hallway, my gaze involuntarily drifted toward what used to be our senior year classroom. Through the window, I seemed to see Axel Chen's profile as he lowered his head to take notes, and Bo Lu turning around to smile at me. Those memories have become so distant now, like someone else's story. Teacher Lee's office was adorned with graduation photos from over the years. I found our class's picture and gently traced my fingers over those youthful faces. Bo Lu stood in the last row, smiling brightly. Vivi Su was at the center of the front row, stunningly beautiful. Axel Chen was diagonally behind me, looking serious. And as for me, I could hardly recognize that shyly smiling girl anymore. Have you heard about Bo Lu? Teacher Lee handed me a cup of tea and suddenly asked. I nodded. Just heard he got married. That kid has changed so much. Teacher Lee sighed. After the car accident, he became a completely different person. He came to last year's class reunion in a wheelchair, ordering Vivi Su around. It was truly heartbreaking to see. Who do you feel sorry for? I asked softly. Everyone. Teacher Lee replied with sorrowful eyes. That girl Vivi Su. She used to be so proud, but now all her spark is gone. Bo Lu too. From a sunny boy to this. I lowered my head, staring at my reflection in the teacup, silent. Hadn't I been the same in my past life? From a high school student full of dreams to a resentful woman trapped in a wheelchair and a failed marriage, but seeing you like this now, I'm truly happy, the teacher said. Teacher Lee patted my hand and said, You've proven that no matter what happens, one can always choose to stand up and keep moving forward. By the time I left the school, the sun had already set in the west, standing at the school gate. I took one last look at the building that held so many memories. No matter what lay ahead, at least at this moment, I was no longer that pitiful pushover. My phone rang again. It was the emergency department of the hospital calling. Dr. Lin, there's a complex case that requires your consultation. The on-duty doctor's voice was urgent. The patient has a severe infection in an old injury on the right leg, accompanied by osteomyelitis, and may need emergency surgery. I'll be right there. I hurried toward the parking lot. Back at the hospital, I went straight to the consultation room. Through the glass window, I saw several doctors gathered inside. The person sitting on the hospital bed had their back to the door, but I recognized that silhouette at a glance. Even after 10 years, I could never mistake it. Bo Lu. My hand paused on the doorknob for a second before I pushed the door open. Dr. Lin is here. Chief Physician Professor Wang greeted me. This patient had his right lower leg amputated 10 years ago, and the residual limb has been repeatedly infected over the past 6 months. Multiple surgeries at other hospitals have had poor results. Considering your expertise in complex bone trauma and infections, would like to hear your opinion. I walked to the bedside and finally got a clear look at Bo Lu's face. He was much thinner than I remembered, with heavy dark circles under his eyes, downturned lips, and an overall gloomy aura. The moment he saw me, his eyes widened instantly, and his lips trembled, but no words came out. Let me see the medical records, I said calmly, taking the folder handed to me by the resident and flipping through it professionally. Thea. Bo Lu finally found his voice. You became a doctor. Dr. Lin is the youngest attending orthopedic surgeon at our hospital, Professor Wang introduced proudly. I pretended not to notice Bo Lu's shocked expression and focused on the medical records. The situation was indeed complicated. Multiple failed surgeries, drug-resistant bacterial infection, necrotic tissue at the residual limb. Any misstep could lead to a second amputation or even be life-threatening. We need immediate surgical debridement, combined with sensitive antibiotics. I closed the medical record. If the infection isn't well controlled, we may have to consider a higher-level amputation. No, Bo Lu suddenly became agitated. No more amputations. I've already, his voice choked up, his eyes frantically searching for something. Just then, the consultation room door swung open, and a haggard woman hurried in, clutching a stack of payment slips. It was Vivi Su. I could hardly recognize her. Her once long, lustrous black hair had been cut into a dry, short style. Her eyes had lost their sparkle, her lips drooped, and her entire being seemed drained of vitality. When she saw me, she visibly froze for a moment before lowering her head and silently standing beside Bo Lu. This is the patient's family member, the resident doctor introduced. My wife, Bo Lu emphasized, giving me a strange look. Somewhere between a challenge and an expectation, I nodded and professionally turned to Vivi Sue. The patient's condition is quite severe and requires immediate surgery. As the family member, please sign the surgical consent form. Vivi Sue took the document, her fingers trembling slightly. She glanced up at me, a flicker of complex emotion in her eyes, then silently signed her name. The surgery is scheduled for the first slot tomorrow morning, I told the team. Administer stronger antibiotics tonight and monitor temperature and blood counts closely. After the consultation, I walked briskly toward my office, my heart pounding violently in my chest. 10 years have passed. And I never imagined we would reunite in this manner. Even more unexpected was that seeing Bo Lu and Vivi Sue in their current state brought me not a shred of satisfaction, only a profound sorrow. Dr. Lin, a voice called out to me. Turning around, I saw Vivi Sue catching up, breathless. Is something the matter? I stopped in my tracks. She bit her lip, seemingly struggling with what to say. In the end, she only whispered, please, perform the surgery well for him, although he, after all, his. Vivi Sue, I interrupted her. I'm a doctor. No matter who the patient is, I will do my best to treat them. It's professional ethics. She raised her head, tears in her eyes. Thank you. And, I'm sorry, why apologize? For everything. Her voice was so soft it was almost inaudible. I don't know. Maybe it's my karma. I took a deep breath. That wasn't your fault. Looking at this poor girl who had been emotionally manipulated by Bo Lu for half her life, she looked at me in surprise. Seemingly not expecting me to say that, go back and rest, I handed her a tissue. Tomorrow's surgery will be very long. As I turned to leave, something suddenly occurred to me, and I looked back to ask, does Axel Chen know you're in the hospital? She shook her head. Don't tell him, I don't want him to worry. That night, I tossed and turned in the hospital duty room. At 3 in the morning, I got up to check on Bo Lu in the ward. He was half sitting on the bed, staring blankly at the night outside the window. Seeing me enter, his eyes lit up. Thea, I knew you'd come. Routine rounds, I said calmly, checking his foreign vital signs. You know what? His voice was hoarse. I've thought about you every single day for the past 10 years. I regret not cherishing you back then. My hand paused briefly before I continued recording the data on the monitor. I'm really happy to see how accomplished you've become, he said, reaching out to grab my hand. But I deftly avoided it. Please remain emotionally stable. It's crucial for the surgery, I said in a businesslike manner. Don't be like this. His voice took on a pleading tone. I know you hate me, but I truly realize my mistake now. Marrying Vivi Sue was forced by my parents. I never loved her at all. I looked up at him and suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of absurdity. This was practically a carbon copy of the excuses he had given Vivi Sue in our past life, only with the roles reversed. You know what? I said softly. I once had an amputation. He froze. What? In another time, another life. I calmly met his gaze. I got into a car accident while delivering a love letter for you to Vivi Sue, lost my right leg, and missed the college entrance exam, out of guilt. Your parents forced you to marry me, but you hated me to the core and eventually abandoned me to go abroad with Vivi Sue. His face turned deathly pale. What are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about. I took out my phone and quietly pressed the record button. Bo Lu, in any time and space, you always shift the blame onto others. Do you really have no fault at all? His breathing became rapid. I didn't. It was clearly you who insisted on sending a love letter to Vivi Sue. Why won't you admit it now? Yes. I was infatuated back then. But now I realize it's you I love. Now it's your turn to taste that bitterness. I took a step closer, trapped in a broken body. Dependent on someone who doesn't love you, living in regret every day. How does it feel, Thea? Tears welled up in his eyes. Please, forgive me. Give me a chance. I'll divorce Vivi Sue. I'll provide you with the best medical care. I took a step back, because that's my professional duty. But beyond that, there's nothing left between us. With that, I turned and left, hearing his muffled sobs as the door closed behind me. In the hallway, I stopped, saved the recording I had just made, and sent it to Vivi Sue with a message. You deserve to know the truth, and you deserve a better life. On the day of the surgery, I arrived at the hospital an hour early. In front of the bathroom mirror, I carefully washed and scrubbed my hands, mechanically repeating the motions I had done countless times before. The icy water streamed over my arms, washing away the last traces of hesitation and doubt. Today, I was not Thea Lynn, but Dr. Lynn, a professional orthopedic surgeon. The operating room is ready, the anesthesiologist, scrub nurse, and circulating nurse are all in position. Under the shadowless lamp, Bolu lies quietly on the operating table, already under anesthesia. Let the surgery begin, I announce, reaching out to take the scalpel handed to me by the nurse. The moment the blade cuts through the skin, my world narrows down to nothing but this surgical field, infected tissue, damaged bones, residual sutures, all the problems are laid bare before my eyes. A decade of medical training combined with first-hand experience from my past life has given me an extraordinary understanding of such trauma. Electrocautery, I reached out, and the scrub nurse handed me the instrument with precision. The surgery lasted 6 hours. We thoroughly removed the infected necrotic tissue, repaired the damaged bone structure, and preserved the residual limb length as much as possible. When the final suture was completed, my surgical gown was soaked with sweat. The surgery went well, I announced, straightening up wearily but with satisfaction. Send him to the recovery room and monitor his vital signs closely. As I stepped out of the operating room, I ran into the anxiously waiting Vivi Sue. She looked like she hadn't slept all night, her eyes red and swollen, clutching a crumpled tissue in her hand. How did it go? She asked eagerly. The surgery was successful. I removed my mask. The source of infection has been cleared, and the limb was saved. However, long-term rehabilitation will still be needed. Her shoulders slumped all at once, as if she had finally been relieved of a heavy burden. Thank you, really, thank you so much. Don't thank me, I rubbed my temples wearily. It's my job. After hesitating for a moment, I finally asked the question. The recording, have you listened to it? Vivi Sue nodded, a flicker of pain flashing in her eyes. Yes, actually, I didn't even need to listen. Ever since we got married, he often calls out your name in his sleep, then scolds me for not being you. My heart felt as if pricked by a needle. Vivi Sue, you don't have to live like this. I know, she said with a bitter smile. But my parents are afraid of the Liu family's retaliation. I don't know what to do. Does Axel Chen know about your situation? She shook her head. I don't want to worry him. He's already busy enough being abroad alone. Silly, I couldn't help but say. Family is exactly who you should rely on at times like these. Axel Chen would be truly hurt if he knew you were suffering like this without telling him. Vivi Sue's tears finally fell. I really can't hold on anymore. I took her to the doctor's lounge and poured her a cup of hot water. She recounted her experiences over the past decade in fragments. Being forced into marriage, giving up the opportunity to study abroad, caring day and night for the moody Bolu, and enduring the cold remarks from the Liu family parents. They think I ruined Bolu. Vivi Sue wiped her tears, saying if I hadn't rejected his love letter that night, he wouldn't have gotten into the car accident. That wasn't your fault. I said firmly, everyone must take responsibility for their own choices. Bolu chose to speed on that rainy day, and the consequences should naturally fall on him. Vivi Sue looked up at me, a glimmer of hope flashing in her eyes. You really think so? Of course. I held her cold hand. Vivi Sue, you're only 28. There's still a long life ahead of you. Don't follow in some people's footsteps. I want a divorce, Vivi Sue suddenly said, her voice soft but firm. But the Liu family won't agree. They said if I dare to divorce, they'll make sure my parents can't stay in this city. I thought for a moment, then suddenly had an idea. What if there's evidence that Bolu is emotionally abusing you, like a recording? Vivi Sue's eyes lit up. You mean, the recording I sent you yesterday, combined with his usual verbal abuse towards you, is enough to file for a protection order and divorce? I said, I can help you contact a lawyer, and Axel Chen will definitely support you too, Thea. Vivi Sue's tears welled up again. Why are you helping me, even though because we're both victims, I said softly. Besides, it's a doctor's duty to show compassion. 3 days later, Bolu fully regained consciousness from the anesthesia when I went to check on him during rounds. He was half leaning on the bed, gazing at the sunlight outside the window with a complicated expression. Vivi Sue is not in the ward. She has already taken the recordings I provided and the documents prepared by the lawyer to file for divorce. The surgery was successful. I examined his wound. If recovery goes well, we can fit a new prosthetic limb in 2 months. Bolu turned to look at me, his eyes filled with a vulnerability and confusion I had never seen before. Vivi Sue is gone. My hands kept moving. Millimeter. She said she wants a divorce. His voice trembled, said she's never coming back. I didn't respond, continuing to record his vital signs. Thea, he suddenly grabbed my wrist. I truly have nothing left now. Please, give me one more chance. Okay, I swear I'll. Bolu, I calmly withdrew my hand. Have I ever told you how you treated me in another timeline, when I needed you most? You chose someone else. His face instantly drained of color. Now you understand the pain I felt back then. I looked straight into his eyes. But that doesn't mean I'll repeat your mistakes. I have my own life, my career, my people I care about. Axel Chen. He let out a bitter laugh. I knew it was him. That's none of your business. I closed the medical chart. Get some rest. Rehabilitation starts tomorrow. Stepping out of the hospital room, I let out a long sigh. As if a heavy burden I'd carried for years had finally been lifted, the thrill of revenge. No, all I felt was a profound sense of relief. Everything from my past life had finally come to a close at this moment. My phone vibrated. A message from Axel Chen. Vivi Sue has told me everything. Thank you for your help. When are you free? I'd like to meet you. I replied, let's wait until Bolu is discharged from the hospital. I want to focus on completing this treatment. A month later, Bolu's wounds had healed well enough for him to be transferred to a rehabilitation center. The divorce proceedings had also begun, and Vivi Sue temporarily stayed in the U.S., preparing to reapply for her interrupted studies. On the day Bolu was discharged from the hospital, his parents came to pick him up. When Mrs. Lu saw me, a flicker of embarrassment and shame crossed her eyes. Dr. Lin, she began hesitantly, thank you for curing my son. Before, I shook my head. I just did what a doctor should do. As I turned to leave, I heard a clattering sound of items falling to the ground, and Bolu called my name from behind, but I didn't look back. 2 weeks after Bolu was discharged from the hospital, I met with Axel Chen at a cafe near our alma mater. 10 years had passed, and Axel Chen's demeanor had grown even more composed, with a touch of the steadfastness unique to mature men between his brows, dressed in a simple white shirt and dark trousers. His eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses lit up when he saw me. Thea, he stood up and pulled out a chair for me. You've lost weight, the daily life of a surgeon. I chuckled as I sat down. How's Vivi Sue doing? Much better. Axel Chen slid over a latte I had already ordered. She's preparing to reapply for the PhD program at MIT. The divorce proceedings are going smoothly. The Lu family didn't dare cause any more trouble after seeing those recordings. I nodded, taking a small sip of coffee, letting the warm liquid glide down my throat. Thank you, Axel Chen suddenly said. If it weren't for you, Vivi Sue might have been trapped in that marriage for the rest of her life. I just did what I should do. I put down the cup. By the way, how's your research at Harvard going? Axel Chen's eyes instantly lit up as he began to talk non-stop about his project on the application of gene editing technology in bone regeneration. As I listened, I couldn't help but smile. He was still the same Axel Chen who couldn't stop talking about medicine, only now he seemed more confident and passionate, actually. He suddenly changed the subject. Aside from dealing with Vivi Sue's matter, there's another reason I came back this time. What? I asked curiously. He took out a small box from his pocket and pushed it toward me. My heart suddenly raced, and my fingers trembled slightly as I opened the box. Inside wasn't a ring, but a uniquely designed badge engraved with the words Harvard-MIT Health Sciences and Technology Joint Program. I'd like to invite you to join my research team. Axel Chen's voice was calm, but his eyes burned with intensity. Combining your clinical experience with my foundational research, we could make groundbreaking advances in the field of bone regeneration. I picked up the badge, and sunlight streaming through the window refracted into a rainbow of colors on its surface. Is this a job offer? Not just that. Axel Chen took a deep breath. It's also the beginning of me wanting to pursue you again. 10 years ago, you said we were still too young. But now I think we've both matured enough to know what we want. What's the matter? He tilted his head, his face glowing with youth under the sunlight. It's just delivering a love letter. Not the first time anyway. I'll treat you to a drink tomorrow. In my past life, I never experienced healthy love. But in this life, Axel Chen has taught me in his own way what respect, understanding, and support truly mean. I need to think about it, I finally said. My work is here. My patients need me, of course, Axel Chen nodded. Whatever decision you make, I'll support you. As we left the cafe, the setting sun stretched our shadows long. Axel Chen's hand occasionally brushed against mine, warm and steady. Oh, he suddenly remembered something. Next month is the school anniversary. Teacher Lee invited us back to give a speech. Are you going? Yes, I answered without hesitation. I want to tell those kids that no matter what happens, life always offers a second chance. A year later, Axel Chen and I had a simple wedding in the United States. On the eve of the wedding, I received a text from an unknown number. Congratulations, I owe you an apology, and I also owe you a thank you. Bolu. I didn't reply, just silently deleted the message, according to Vivi Su. Bolu's father passed away not long ago. To support his family, Bolu left the rehabilitation center early, and no one knows what he's doing for work now, but I no longer care. Whether he's doing well or not has nothing to do with me. It's all the consequence of his own actions. At the wedding, when Axel Chen slipped a specially made ring onto my finger, its inner band engraved with the words to heal, to love, to grow, I looked up at the man who was about to become my husband. My heart filled with a quiet joy. Instead of exchanging expensive diamond rings, we chose these unique surgical steel bands, symbolizing both our professions and the strong, pure bond between us. 5 years later, on the anniversary of our alma mater, Axel Chen and I returned to give a speech with our 3-year-old twins in tow. The 2 children sat in the front row, curiously looking around, while Axel Chen and I stood on the podium, sharing our story. The most wonderful thing about life is, I looked at the young faces in the audience and smiled. It's always full of infinite possibilities. No matter what setbacks you encounter, remember, the sun will still rise tomorrow. And you will always have the chance to start anew. After the speech, a limping figure quietly left from the back row of the auditorium. I didn't chase after them, nor did my gaze linger for too long. On the way home, Axel Chen held a child in each arm, and I walked beside him. The setting sun stretched the shadows of the 4 of us long, merging them together, pointing toward the distance.